You are in Warriors Huddle with me, Bram, and with me, per usual, my master of all things video and sound, Maxine.
How's it going?
We should say I forgot a mic. If I sound shitty right now, it's not on the master of all things sound. This one's
Whoa.
on me. We'll forget it. I mean, next week, chances are I'll bring up that my mic was terrible and I don't know why Maxine didn't fix it. But for now, that caveat. Also joining me, my boy and producer MT.
What's up, Dub Nation?
Gentlemen, rejoining us after crazy long, the former Golden State beat writer who covered the rise of a dynasty, a high-profile sports author who's contributed to multiple media outlets, including Fox Sports Radio, Athlon Sports, and CBS LA, a fixture in the NBA world who earned a nickname from Steph Curry's personal coach in Golden State, a guy whose wedding table pictures were harder to attend than you'd think, and a reporter who was recently name-dropped by Yahoo Sports in an article about Kawhi Leonard's aspirations, Mr. Mark Medina. What's going on, Mark?
Bram, thank you for the amazing intro as always, but let me add a few new items to the IMDb page. Of course, took a charge from Ron Artest, stole the ball from Nick Young, and I think there's probably a lot more fun off the court reports. Oh yeah, attended the Klay Thompson Championship Parade bus in 2018.
I needed an instant ruling here. Are you allowed to add to your own fucking introduction? I feel like you cannot. Like whatever it is that's given to you, you just kind of have to roll with it. I mean, especially if it was all positive. But you know, I open this up to the full panel. What do we think here? Is this allowed?
I don't know. It feels like hiring your own behind the scenes crew, like when you're making your own documentary.
Or like when Kobe decided his own nickname, he's like, I'm Black Mamba now. You know, like I feel like that's maybe whose playbook Mark is taking from here.
Or how about with Kobe? He did that Showtime documentary, and this is a true story. There were so many different interviews, former coaches, former teammates, so much footage, and then he decided, you know what? We're not going to have a documentary featuring all those voices. It's just going to be a documentary featuring me. So wild.
Well, here I can add to that with my own kind of self-centered nature. When you started to say, oh, like, here's some other introductions, I thought for sure it was going to involve me. I thought you'd be shithousing me, but I thought it would involve me, and I got all excited for it. The only reason I'm upset now is that you just mentioned you and that I wasn't included. So, you know, what are you going to do? It's a loss. I am chasing down the wrong portion of your intro, though, Mark. I recently got to really show off my friendship with you to my wife. So Yahoo writes an article. Their article is called, quote, Kawhi Leonard reportedly made requests to Raptors in 2019 that line up almost perfectly with Clippers timeline. It's a Kawhi Leonard, Steve Ballmer aspirations article. And the article had this quote, back in 2019, when asked about reports that his uncle had demanded interested suitors furnish him with beyond the CBA benefits, Leonard offered little. I didn't read it. I don't know how reliable it is, Leonard said, according to Mark Medina, then of USA Today. So when I saw that, sitting there on the couch, saw your name, immediately turned to Erica. I was like, I know this guy who just got dropped in this fucking national news story. She didn't care at all. Didn't even stop watching the fucking television. But I like really try to capitalize on it, man. So I was impressed. And let me ask a question whose answer I'm really excited for. So you bring up Kawhi Leonard to people who've never met him, and you'll get 100 opinions about his personality. You know, someone will bring up the laugh. Some will bring up that like he's aloof and weird. I mean, all of these people out there talk about his personality. None of those fucking people have met him. You know, like I don't know a single person who's actually talked to him outside of you. You were fucking name dropped in Yahoo because of a conversation you had with him. How would you describe his personality, man? Is this guy as reported? Is he, you know, a little bit easier to get quotes from than I've learned? How do you describe it?
Graham, what I've learned about Kawhi Leonard, and it's very limited, but it's all the above. He is aloof. He can answer questions awkwardly. He has a stoic personality, but he is one of those people that randomly drops those one-line jokes that when you least expect it. So I think if you catch him in a private setting, he could be someone that could deliver some stand-up comedy, not maybe for an hour show, but maybe for a few punchlines in a few minutes. But I think the other thing is that the bigger thing about Kawhi is he, for better and for worse, is about the work. So he is always locked into his routine, whether it's his playing regimen, his rehab regimen, and everything else is kind of an afterthought. And that explains all the different personality traits of him being aloof, him being aware, much more than we think we give him credit for, him being occasionally funny. I think the funniest, at least personal interaction that explains this were two. One, when he joined the Clippers in 2019, that was my first year with USA Today, moving back to LA after covering the Warriors. And so I had met Kawhi before, but I presume he didn't remember me. So I made a point to go up to him and introduce myself. And I said, "Hey, Kawhi, I'm Mark Medina with USA Today. I'm going to be here, throughout the season. Looking forward to working with you." And he was very gracious, and he shakes my hand and he says, "Hi, I'm Kawhi Leonard." And I tried very hard not to laugh because, yeah, no, you know what? That's why I'm approaching you. So that was interaction number one. That was funny. Interaction number two.
For a sec, just because I want to hear it. Let me pause for a sec. When you introduce yourself, did you work in that you took a charge from Ron Artest, or no? You just let that go later on?
I did not. I was tempted to, but I was too busy laughing inside about his own introduction to me. There is a moment that Kawhi had with me that season that wound up going viral. And it was, I think, lesson learned on how to frame a question to him. A lot of times with other players, this is actually considered a good question for them. With Kawhi Leonard, it wasn't. He threw down a highlight reel dunk, and it was amazing against the Boston Celtics. And so I asked him, "Can you walk us through how you pulled the dunk off?" And a lot of times when you ask a question like that to players, they'll give you kind of their frame of mind of how they're thinking in the play, what they did to execute. All he did was literally answer the question. And he's like, "Well, I had the ball. I dribbled a few times. I leaped up and jumped in the air." And because of that awkwardness, it went viral because it was considered, oh, this is a reporter asking a dumb question moment. So it was pretty funny.
Next time you see him, ask him one of those softballs for how he handled the Aspirations deal. It'll just be nothing.
Kawhi, can you walk us through how the Aspiration deal came to be and why it didn't work out? How many trees did you plant?
Well, I got $28 million and I did nothing, he would answer it. And it would be really entertaining. Boys, I'm going to ask Mark this. He'll give us an honest answer. Tell me how you think he would answer and what you guys would do. So this Steve Ballmer story is all coming from Pablo Torres, and in a lot of ways, it's a career maker. I mean, Pablo was great at what he did, and will continue to be great at what he did. He is given a number of stories, and Pablo Torres finds out, but none that's getting the attention that this one is. It's a national story that everybody's on top of. So personality type, it feels like it can go either way. As a reporter, watching another reporter get this kind of attention, you could just be happy for them. This is their break. They earned it. Or you could be like me, jealous and bitter. You're not getting any of this fucking attention. You would prefer it come towards you. So I'm going to ask that to Mark. Is he bitter at all of Pablo? Before I do, boys, how would you feel about it? And how's Mark going to answer it?
So, I mean, okay, first of all, we don't need to talk in layers of abstraction here. He runs a podcast about, sports, right? So I'm looking at it, but pretty pissed because I'm like, this is not... it's a lot of work, right? But the way that he does these things, like these little tricks of okay, we're not going to turn the paper over until I say so. And then clearly the guests are looped into this bit. And so they're asking about the paper, right? And it creates this tension that I think is really good. I'm like, that's not that hard. We could have pulled that off. So pretty bitter, as you could tell by me just yelling about Pablo Torre. But also the level of work that went into it. And then when he had Dan Le Batard on, it was very clear that a lot of money was put into the reporting and that there's a lot of legal teams behind all of these conversations and so much work. And then I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm really stoked that I don't have to do that much work. I'm actually not bitter at all. So thanks. And I think ultimately Mark would not be too dissimilar in the end feeling. I think he's the type of person that likes to celebrate other people's success and has gotten to where he is because this is a collaborative environment with players and with coaches and with owners. And you don't get to the national position that he's in if you're stepping on people's toes too outwardly. So he might be feeling a little bit jealous internally, but he would never say it as that cool, calm exterior.
Oh yeah, there's no fucking way. Mark's not going to tell us he's bitter. There's no way. He's happy for Pablo. I'll just hedge with my own bitterness that you're already aware of. So yeah, Pablo Torres is a podcast. I happen to be a podcast host. Also, in a lot of ways, it was like a legal analysis. It was uncourt reported deposition, essentially what he was doing, or a breakdown, an opening statement. As an attorney who's also a podcast host, was I fucking bitter that he was able to pull all that shit off? I am right now. Talking about it as we speak is like frothing me up into like a sweaty hatred of how successful he's been. All right, MT, how would it make you feel? And your guest remark.
I wouldn't be bitter, but only because I would value my relationships with the teams moving forward more. Like, I think it's great reporting, and I love that Pablo did it and kind of pulled the curtain back. I don't think this is the first time a team has done it. Obviously, Minnesota comes to mind, but I think other teams have done it and gotten away with it. So the fact that he's reporting on it just means that he's burned those bridges and he's kind of forced himself down a singular path for the rest of his career. It's great reporting. I just wouldn't have done that for my career path. I think Mark is the same way. I think he's not bitter about it. He's just, like quietly rooting, like, oh shit, he's actually doing it. Like, so I don't think he would do it, and he's not bitter. He's just surprised that somebody of that stature and on a platform as big as ESPN is willing to pull back the curtain and talk about what's probably an unspoken or a secret that's widely known within circles.
Mark, we want the answer first. Give me a take on this. It seems to be that MT was bitter. I think what he just told us was, look, I don't really like that he broke the story, but he's fucked now because he pissed off all those other teams, so I'm fine with it, which feels like the definition of a bitter response, even if you hedge it with, I'm not bitter. But you're the reporter, man. You tell me, is MT bitter, and are you?
I think MT sounded pretty pragmatic about the situation and weighing the cost benefit. I think the one thing that we have to keep in mind, even with the media landscape changing, is that someone like Pablo Torre, I don't think is worrying about if a team's going to be upset with them. He's just going to point to, is this accurate or not, and do I have evidence to back up my reporting? I think that's number one. Number two is that whether people like the media or not, information's a currency. And so with him getting something like this out there, that in a way is relationship building, because now other people can go to him with maybe potentially similar information, other rival teams, so that he can look into it. I think the other thing is, even if whatever he's covering, whether it's the Clippers, another subject matter, if they're currently upset with what they're covering now, they don't have to like him, but they'll have to respect him because he's someone that does his job, takes it seriously. And again, in our field, information is the main value currency. How I feel about it, I always keep it 100 here and everywhere else. So I don't have any resentment, jealousy toward Pablo. A lot of respect for what he's done, the equity he put into it. I respect a lot out of people that do good work, put in the work to get that good work. Whether it's in the media space or outside, where I feel negative feelings toward are people that take shortcuts, try to gossip behind people's back at the expense of other people. That's where I push back and make myself known. But when it comes to someone's success because they did their work and they're rewarded for that, I'm always their cheerleader.
Shortcuts and gossip pretty much describes this podcast.
Yep.
So I'm sure that you're not super happy about it. Also, newsflash, MT, you are pragmatic but wrong. I don't know if you really picked that up. I want to underline it as heavy as I can. Marcus mentioned this. Let's turn it into a question. You had to bet something significant to you. This is a question for all of us. All right. Bet something significant to you. Would you bet over or under half the league is up to some sort of cap circumvention? So like this whole thing, the story is that they gave Kawhi $28 million off the Bucks. You don't have to worry about the cap. And what you hear from most media outlets is, well, could be happening in other places. No one's reporting that it is, but these are competitive billionaires, probably looking for every possible advantage they can. Ballmer's just one of them. So what do you think? Over or under half the teams are doing something similar? I'll go first just because I already got the mic. Over. I don't know. I don't have anybody specific. I'm not making any specific allegations. And this would be my chance to be like Pablo Tola. I've got fucking nothing and no evidence to overturn here. But I do believe that more than half the teams are probably up to something like this.
Yeah, I do think, right, both Zach Lowe, I think, and Pablo Torre are saying owners are reaching out saying that they're pretty upset and front offices are definitely very upset, which might skew me towards saying under, because if everybody's really upset, then that means that like, oh, well, if they got to do this, why didn't we? But to me, I'm saying over for, maybe this is an overly simplistic reason, but you named your fucking LLC KL2 Aspire LLC, which tells me that like you must think that everybody is doing this and are so not scared that this is happening that you're going to put that little effort into hiding it, because you're like, it's an open secret that everybody's doing this. I think if they were the only ones, if this really was a Clippers specific thing and this had never been seen before, there would be a lot more work to hide it. The first time you lie about something, you work really, really hard. The 1,000th time you lie about something, you're like, I haven't gotten caught yet, right? Let's do it. I think it's an open secret that the whole NBA is doing this.
Unconfirmed reports were that the first title they had for the LLC was "fuck the salary cap," but then they decided, no, we got to have kind of a better one. Mark, MT?
Circumvent LLC was taken. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go under, but only because I think Dennis Robertson is in a unique position where he's just one of those people who is giving bad advice to Kawhi, and he's just asking for the world, and not everybody does that. I think teams are willing to do it, but not to the degree of, I want stake and equity in the company, I want a no-show sponsorship, like taking it to that extreme. So a little context to your question and answer, Bram. I don't think it happens that, and I would go the under, that it's as extreme as Kawhi, but I do think there are deals that are made with partners and they just say, we would like this star player to be, a spokesperson, and the deal happens and they end up participating in commercials or liking Instagram posts. So I think it's under on how many people do it so blatantly with a no-show clause involved.
The Toronto article suggested that Dennis's asks were wild. Like to Toronto, who was like asking for ownership percentage in teams they didn't own. It's like, I want a piece of like the Maple Leafs. Or like, the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, this is a deal with the Raptors. Like, we don't own the Maple Leafs. Like, how can we possibly give that to you? All right, Mark, what's your guess?
Now, my guess is the under, and here's how I view it. I'm not naive on knowing how competitive these teams are, but I think that there's a few things we have to keep in mind. This salary cap circumvention issue is much different than other forms of cheating, whether it's, tampering in free agency and, all those times we saw, maybe not this past offseason, because offseason movement was pretty light, but when we see those 1201 or 601 deals pop up as if, they had 60 seconds to negotiate, that level is much different than salary cap circumvention. So that's point number one. Point number two, I think that the reaction toward these allegations speaks volumes on how, owners feel about it. If some of them were actually doing it, they may not be as anonymously forceful about hoping that Adam Silver lays down the hammer, because if they were to invite that, they could get their own skeletons revealed. Yep. So I think that, I'm not going to say the Clippers are the only ones that have done salary cap circumvention, but I don't think it's the majority of the league. I would think that the Clippers are more the exception, not the rule, because of, we've seen the precedent, what happened with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Joe Smith with very severe financial penalties. I think that there's also a lot of things tied to the salary cap because of what concerns small market owners have, that they don't have the same kind of spending power that someone like Steve Ballmer does. So if I had to guess, I think that privately owners do wish that Adam Silver lays the hammer down than ones that hope, okay, it's a slap on the wrist so they don't find out skeletons that I might be doing.
As we were discussing this, especially as you were just talking about it, you can make an argument that competition would mean that they are not doing this behind the scenes, right? The second somebody of Steve Ballmer's wealth joins the board of directors as an owner, and now you're talking the sixth richest person on earth, you're like rich enough to buy most of the other owners in that room, and now if you're another owner, you've got to be worried that this guy's got way more money than I do. Suddenly you would really want those rules to be followed. Because you can, if all of us are cheating and this guy can cheat way more than I can, I don't want any more cheating, like fuck that. the other side that I want to say before we move on, the Joe Smith thing, so that would be a deterrence. Nobody wants to lose 5 first-round picks. That's wild. But also, the Joe Smith thing was done so sloppy. I mean, there was literally a contract that said, this thing we're not allowed to do, we are contractually obligated to do. There was like actual paperwork that spelled out, we are circumventing the cap by giving you a deal in the future. And so I think a lot of other teams would realize, well, we're not complete fucking idiots. We probably wouldn't take that way to go after it. Okay. Warriors. Actually, you know what? One last question before Warriors news. Mark, we're speeding towards a media day. I mean, we're probably less than a month away. You're in a market that's going to have 2, both the Lakers and the Clippers. Traditionally, I would imagine there's no fucking question. The Lakers are the 5,000-pound gorilla. They're the team that everybody wants to follow. If you could only attend one media day, I'm sure it's the Lakers. This year, a lot of stories in Clipperland. We haven't heard anything from Kawhi yet, and presumably he'll be at media day with a microphone in front of him. So if you can only attend one media day in LA, which team are you attending?
It's wild. It's still the Lakers. I mean, you still have LeBron James, who may or may not be playing his final season with the Lakers. You have Luka Doncic, who's come back in much better shape. There's a lot of intrigue. Does this mean they're a championship contending team, or more realistically, just one of many playoff teams that can make some noise, as well as just question marks about durability and the rest of the roster? Is it good or bad? With the Clippers, even though, yes, this is a big story, what do you expect Kawhi Leonard's going to say, or Lawrence Frank? It's a bunch of no comments where, we take the investigation seriously that the NBA is doing. We're cooperating with Kawhi. He'll just plead ignorance with, a lot of bland, stoic statements, and that's that. So the statements themselves aren't really that captivating of a story. So yeah, I'll be at Lakers Media Day, and that's one of many reasons why.
Kawhi should just lean into how much of a weirdo he is. Showed up dressed like an apple and just don't even talk about it, say nothing. Just answer every question that's put to him with the phrase "Apple time," and then just see what happens from there.
In other words, Kawhi is not going to treat his press conference the way Nick Nolte did in Blue Chips when he was accused. When he was accused of these recruiting scandals and taking money, and then he just fessed up and told the whole media corps in front of him what happened. Kawhi is going to do the complete opposite. Same thing with the Clippers. Hence, there's no point going to it.
If this was a comedic movie, right, it would fast forward 3 weeks later. It would show you at Lakers Media Day, nothing's happening. LeBron didn't even show up. Then it would flash to the Lakers or to the Clippers thing, and Kawhi is giving that kind of a press conference. All right, dude, I gotta come clean. I took all this money. I hate trees, he says. I have no aspirations. It would be incredible. To the Warriors, boys. Let's do our glass half full. Mark, you'll remember this. We look back at Warriors news. Tell us something you like or don't. This week, the Warriors news is Jonathan Kuminga related. Who could have guessed? The summer of Kuminga continues. Mark, I'm sure there's been nothing, no signings, nothing's happened. All we do is talk about Kuminga, and this week is no different, although kind of an entertaining topic. So Kuminga's agent, Aaron Turner, made a series of media appearances this week, and a thing that I've never seen done. I've been a basketball fan during thousands, probably, of contract negotiations. I have never seen an agent during those negotiations give open interviews. This guy did. And while he did it, he said that if the Warriors make the final year of their 3-year offer for $75 million, a player option, he will not only take it, but he'll buy in completely. Here's the quote, if the Warriors want to win now, if you want a guy that's happy and treated fairly, who is a big part of this team, we believe moving forward, you give him the player option. You do lose a little of that trade value giving that up, but if it's about the here and now, you give him that. You don't get a perfect deal, but you get a pretty good deal, and he gets to feel respected about what he gets. Here's the buy-in, and we all move on and worry about winning, helping Steph Curry. So that's been talked about a bunch in recent Warriors discussions. The idea of all right, look, he'll buy in. You pay him enough, he will buy into the role. Mark, let's work our way up to you. Gentlemen, like it or don't?
I don't like it. He should be bought in regardless. Even at the qualifying offer, even at the NBA minimum, you're making so much more money than most people do. And the fact that you're going to hold out and say, I'll only be completely bought in if you give me a player option and guarantee I get to choose if I want another $25 million at the end instead of this 48. Like, it just reeks of superstardom and not the kind that we would want on our team. And he's not a superstar. So to me, I haven't seen it either. I read it as, if I were Mike D and the Warriors, I would read it as desperation from JK's camp, that they were worried that we weren't calling their bluff, or, and like offering that. And like, if you're going to take the qualifying offer, fine. So I don't like it. I think, there's been additional reporting that said, oh, Steph and Jimmy and Dre all went to management and said, we want JK back. That's probably coming from Aaron as well. And I just think it's not the right move. Like, you dragged it out for this long, and now you're still trying to play hardball. Like, just make up your mind.
Thought it was a mistake for him to make those media appearances. I agree with you across the board. One of the things he kept saying, he will take the qualifying offer. That was already news. By the fifth time he said it this last week, it made me feel like maybe he doesn't want the qualifying. Like, why are you pushing this so hard? It's a story that's already been reported. And then as far as him coming out and be like, he'll buy in. I wouldn't like this already if it was just coming from JK, but at least like, he's the player. He's just speaking how he would normally speak, and I wouldn't give him quite as much shit. That this is coming from the agent is fucking wild to me. The agent's job is to try to get a deal done, but also speak in a way that will make the deal far more likely, right? And so he could have said, the agent could have said, look, JK loves it here. And in fact, loves his role here, is ready right fucking now to help them win. But what he doesn't like is his lack of control for his future. After Steph leaves, he doesn't work with us, man. Like, that's all we're doing. But that's not what he said. Basically, what he says is, I don't like the role here. He doesn't like the role here. He doesn't like his fit here. But I tell you what, let him control his future. Then he will. That shit doesn't make me feel any fucking better. That's true of any. I hate Brussels sprouts, but if you pay me enough, I'll eat them. That doesn't change how I feel about them. And so the way he has framed this, I thought was folly, was stupid. I don't know why he would do this. Maxime?
Oh, I agree completely. I'm reminded of two cases. On the one side, you have DeAndre Ayton, who basically said, like, my whole goal in life is just to get the bag. And as soon as he got the bag, he kind of sucked. And I feel like in general, the people that show us that their fire is lit by chasing that great dollar sign tend to kind of burn out after they get the dollar sign. So I'm not particularly confident that as soon as he gets his bag, he's right. And whereas you have somebody like Steph Curry, right, who took a discount, a couple of times in his career, obviously one time early on when he has the ankle injury, but is indicating to the team, right, like, I will prove my value at some point. Right. So you can, sure. Like, I'm going to bet on myself by continuing to work on this team. And those are the type of people in the end of the day that get rewarded. It's no surprise that Kuminga is freaking out because nobody else in the league is trying to give him an offer above the qualifying offer. So he has something to come back to the Warriors with. It sounds like there are some contracts that are giving him something, but not as much as he wants. So I think overall he's doing the wrong thing. He's saying that he wants the money, which is not what any NBA team, the Warriors or otherwise, are actually interested in hearing.
Yeah, I'm with you all. I fully understand why in negotiations they would bring up wanting to have a player option instead of the team option, because there's a little bit more control with that contract. You understand why the Warriors have been firm with wanting that team option, because they want flexibility with trades. But the other thing that's been disappointing with how this has played out is, it's one thing if Jonathan Kuminga was trying to extract more value because there's been more demand with different offers, but he didn't get any offer sheet for the Warriors to match. They've gotten different trade proposals from the Sacramento Kings, from the Phoenix Suns, but they weren't really game-changing type of moves, and so the Warriors rejected it. So I think internally the Warriors are thinking, okay, like, if Jonathan Kuminga is so valuable, where's all the demand in the market? It's not really there. And, they like him, but it's only to a degree. It's only worth a certain amount of money. It's only worth a certain amount of years with a team option. And I think the other thing that the Warriors are evaluating with Jonathan Kuminga is that they have Jimmy Butler on the team. They've been very encouraged and also mindful of some of his ups and downs through the early part of his career and some of the injuries. But Jimmy Butler is a game changer, not just because it's Jimmy effing Butler and they went 27-8 when he was playing with Steph Curry, but Jonathan Kuminga did not play well because of the spacing issues there, and his numbers dropped significantly. And it's not just minutes dropping, it's also efficiency numbers dropping. And so I think the Warriors are calculating that this is probably what it's going to look like moving forward. Now, relatively speaking, they're more optimistic with the fact that they have Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry together with the full season. They can build off of that post-season deadline momentum. But as it pertains to Kuminga, they're very much anticipating that it's the second post-trade deadline version of Kuminga as opposed to pre-trade deadline when Jimmy Butler arrived. The other thing is that in the playoffs, he did get some opportunities that, I remember talking to Mike Dunleavy before the Rockets series. He was expecting that he was going to have an impact in that series. And even with the injury situation, they did not feel like he was ready for that moment. So that's why they've been taking this offseason the way it has.
Well, and JK supporters, and I count myself amongst them. Before this happened, I was one of his most vocal fans. But JK supporters will always point to that Minnesota series and, look what he's capable of. He averaged 24 the second Steph went down. As a counterpoint, I think you could say what that shows he's capable of. He's a good stats on a bad team guy. Because they did not win any of those games against Minnesota after Steph went down, but he played fairly well in them. You mentioned Jimmy Butler, and just kind of an aside, one of the sidelight stories that I've become aware of is that Jimmy Butler may or may not be calling the front office to ask what's happening now. This thing has gone on for long enough and they haven't made any moves. And he may be asking, I don't know if that's true. I'm not reporting it. I will say that as far as disruptive forces go in the locker room, we're all worried about Kuminga. They better make sure fucking Jimmy Butler is on the same page as how they're handling this offseason. Because if they welcome in a upset Jimmy Butler, if he really wants them to sign Kuminga, or if this offseason he feels like is wasting one of his last shots at a title contention, I think we're going to see some really ugly shit, because we've watched him throw more than a couple temper tantrums in situations he's not happy in. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm not saying we're even close to it. But the second I read that Jimmy was like, wait, what's happening? I didn't like that. Let's go ahead and just make this thing go away before it gets any bigger, because who needs it to be any bigger?
Yeah, well, look, I was poking around on, the October 1 deadline, the qualifying offer. The messaging I was getting within the Warriors is that, it's a strong expectation they're going to reach a deal with Jonathan Kuminga before this. So I think moving forward, it's going to be about what will his role look like? Can he be adaptable for when he's not getting that consistent run because Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry are getting the bulk of the minutes together? And then secondly, if one of those players are down, is he ready to hold the fort in a short-term notice? I think it's a much different player because Kuminga is a lot better, but I remember covering the Warriors 2018-19 season entering training camp when they didn't have a resolution with Patrick McCall because he thought that he deserved more. He showed promise as this role player and he wasn't getting a lot of attractive offers from the Warriors. And I think that in the offseason, beginning of camp, the players were supporting the player as teammate to teammate, get the best for your get the best offer you can get. But I think that players, they're very business savvy. So once the market says what your worth is, they expect that player to just take what's available and be most realistic. So what I'm getting at is I think if this drags into the season or they accept a deal, but it affects just Kuminga's attitude, I don't think the players are going to be upset with management. I think that they would be upset with Kuminga.
It's a great take. Mark, 2 hypotheticals, and then to our last question. Hypothetical number 1. You are a GM for an NBA team. There are no players on it, not a single one. And you can either add Austin Reeves or Jonathan Kuminga. Who would you pick?
That's a good question. I'll pick Austin Reeves. It's two completely different players. They're good role players, strengths, weaknesses. I'm picking Austin Reeves because from a player combination standpoint, I think that you can move Austin Reeves around with different players, whether it's star players, role players, players that are ball dominant, ones that move off the ball. He's very competitive, even though, he has some shortcomings as a defender. He's improved there. He's proven a lot more comfortable when he has the ball in his hands. But the one thing that doesn't ever waver is his competitive drive, where I'm not saying that Jonathan Kuminga is not a competitive person, but I do see that his effort kind of wanes up and down depending on how happy he is with his role.
I think that you are undervaluing the hateable face index, but I understand where you're coming from on that. The second question, I think you've already answered it, but I'm asking anyways. Still an NBA GM, but there is a player on your team, Steph Curry, and you can only add one, Austin Reeves or Jonathan Kuminga. I think you just explained why it would be Reeves, but that was going to be a far more clever player and question had you answered the first one, Jonathan Kuminga. It's not really as sexy now, but go ahead and answer it. If you're going to pair Steph Curry up with somebody, Austin Reeves or Jonathan Kuminga?
Well, it would be Jonathan Kuminga in this specific circumstance, because you already have Jimmy Butler. You have someone who can already manage the ball. He's an offensive threat. He allows Steph to move off the ball and be a little bit more efficient. So in specifically the Warriors context, because of who else they have on the team, they're better off keeping Kuminga. But to the hypothetical that you presented, GM, no one's on my team, Blake Slate, I think a better starting point is Austin Reeves than Kuminga.
Final segment here, boys, to our golden questions. I actually have 2 questions, but we're running longer than I told Mark we were going to run. So we're going to pick one, kind of a choose your own adventure. We'll have a vote and I'll keep myself out of it so that we don't have a tie. Question number 1 is kind of the type of thing you would do during an off season, but more regular NBA podcast. Who is a more valuable member to the Warriors dynasty, Andre Iguodala or Kevin Durant? The other is kind of an open-ended question. It asks if you were a magical author, if what you wrote happened and you could pen what happens with the Warriors season this year, what dramatic twist would you add to it to make it the most entertaining season possible? Gentlemen, question 1 or 2? Take your time.
2.
I mean, I don't want to be the deciding vote. I feel like I want to know what Mark has to say either way.
So we're having to decide who is more important to the Warriors dynasty, Kevin Durant or Andre Iguodala. I would say it's Kevin Durant because, he's one of the most skilled players in the NBA. Yes, Andre, 2015 NBA Finals MVP. He was the connector with the star players, role players. He did everything well on the floor, but we're talking about Kevin effing Durant here.
Sounds like we're going with question 1, and we already have a response. Let's go. I'll give you guys, we'll cover that second question on a future podcast. For this one, just some quick and dirty, easy stats. Yeah. Andre joins Golden State in 2013. Worth mentioning, he turned down a 5-year deal with Denver to sign a 4-year deal with Golden State. And after joining us in 2013, spends 8 years here, wins 4 titles and a single finals MVP. Durant joins us on the 4th of July in 2016, plays for 3 seasons, wins 2 titles and 2 finals MVPs. Possibly would have won a third had he not gotten hurt. There's the setup. We heard from Mark. Either of you boys want to go second?
I think it's Iguodala. I think we probably don't win as many, so it impacts the dynasty label. But Andre Iguodala choosing the Warriors lent a sense of legitimacy to what Mark Jackson was saying and what a lot of the fans in the league were kind of saying, like, these guys are close. And him coming for a shorter deal and saying, like, I believe in this team and I'm willing to take a back seat and be a 6th man and focus on defense and bring the culture that I bring to me was just a little bit more important. I mean, it's, to Mark's point, Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant, so there's no disqualifying. He probably was the reason we won both of those. I don't know if we win both without him, but I think Andre Iguodala laid the foundation and was a little bit more critical to that dynasty run.
I'm going to lay out both arguments before selecting. I don't know yet. All right, you guys are going to help me pick. Andre, MT, you just hit what I would have said. And so, I mean, first, if this is a who had the better career, it's not a question. It's fucking laughable. I mean, Kevin Durant is a surefire Hall of Famer, surefire top 10 play, all of those things. We don't need to litigate that. As far as impact for the Warriors, right? What he did was make choosing Golden State acceptable. The Sean Livingstons of the world, the David Wests, the Maurice Spates, the DeMarcus Cousins, maybe even Kevin Durant, don't come. He was the first major free agent that said, okay, no. You can make that team a destination. He was also the first guy to recognize who the fuck Steph was. You know, I mean, if for those of us who listened to his speech and his retirement jersey, Andre talked more about 30 than he did about 9. You know, and it wasn't some pandering. It's because he recognizes who the fuck Steph is. That's a huge thing. He's also our first finals MVP. I'll give you the other side for Kevin Durant. And this is, I'm stealing Isaiah Thomas's argument. I'm not telling you I believe this, and we've never actually talked about it on this show, but it's an interesting one. Isaiah Thomas joined, he's done it on a few podcasts, but he did it with Draymond Green. And what he told to Draymond Green was, far from valuable to the dynasty, he said Kevin Durant created the dynasty. He said, if Durant doesn't fucking join you guys, you lose. You lose against LeBron, that 3-1 comeback, and that's fucking it. They don't talk about you guys at all anymore. You win one championship, Durant never comes, and you're forgotten. It's not even a term. The dynasty is not even thrown your direction. Now, 2022 hedges against that. You know, I don't know if I believe it, but it's a fucking interesting argument, you know, and it certainly backs KD's value. So I don't know yet. You know, there's the two spots. Maxime, are you hedging one way?
Honestly, you really helped me kind of fall down on the Andre Iguodala side. I think that the 2022 title is a huge argument against Isaiah Thomas's argument. There was an inevitability, right? I remember podcasts in that dynastic era just being like, we're not even going to talk about the Warriors because obviously they're going to win the title. Let's just find intrigue elsewhere. That not having Kevin Durant sets us back into the title contender, not obvious title presumed winner. Yep. But it's sort of like the cherry on top of the sundae, as opposed to, I don't know, like the vanilla that's in the sundae, right? Or the chocolate sauce or whatever. Like Andre Iguodala is so much more foundational to what we were trying to do that he was willing to come to Golden State and then immediately take a role as the sixth man off the bench. Sets the whole foundation for the strength in numbers thing that becomes the thing that's on the t-shirts that leads to the championships, right? So it's not just about a belief in Steph. It's about the belief in the Kerr system. It's about optimizing for intelligence over brawn that Andre Iguodala brings into the locker room. It's about being able to talk about venture capital and being in Silicon Valley and making the whole off the court stuff seem cool because Andre's out there investing. I think what he created for what Golden State means as a franchise now is something that Kevin Durant got to join. And I don't know if you flip those things that we would necessarily have the identity that led to the back-to-back strength in numbers. We play 15 guys and crush from top to bottom. So I think Andre Iguodala is more important to this franchise.
I think if you change the question, if you asked Warrior fans, they can only build one statue, Andre or Kevin Durant, I think you get a 90% response, Andre. Yeah, I think it'd be something like, it'd be some ridiculously high number.
Can I add an extra wrinkle here?
Of course.
Okay, so the short answer is not just it's Kevin effing Durant, but I agree with your points that Kevin basically all but guaranteed they would win those two titles and those two finals MVP performances. They still could have won, but they wouldn't have been the predominant favorite and wouldn't have been guaranteed. But we also have to keep in mind with Durant, he does have some relation to the 2022 NBA title run because when they traded him to the Nets as part of the sign-in trade, they got D'Angelo Russell. Yeah. They flipped him to Minnesota less than a year later for Andrew Wiggins. So all these things are tied together. But I will validate the counter arguments that you're making with Andre Iguodala. That ties together too of the foundation. If it wasn't for their success and his adaptability with role and being the connector, Durant may not have come here in the first place. Yeah, so It's a very valid and fair debate among Warrior fans on this.
I think one other example too, it's small, but it symbolizes a lot for me is what everybody knows that Steph has those moments where he shoots the ball and then turns around before it goes in. One of the first times he did it, and I would, fact check, but I think the first time he ever did it was against Orlando in a preseason game when Iguodala had joined. And to me, it symbolized that Iguodala had brought that belief, and everybody was like, okay, this is going to be something special, because in that preseason game, Steph shot a shot, turned around, and gave a high five to somebody on the bench, and it was Andre Iguodala.
And there's to add to that, theoretically, supposedly, one of the main reasons why Andre told Denver to take their 5-year offer and shove it up their ass is because they recognized who Steph was. Because they had the season before, Denver's season ended in a playoff loss to Golden State, where Andre got a first row view of exactly who Steph could be. And so would it be shocking that during that offseason after he joined, Andre's in his ear, look, here's what I saw. You might not know who you are, but I do. Here's where we're going. All right, I'm giving it to Andre. The thing that I genuinely believe, the domino thing, that if he doesn't come, the rest of them don't. I do not think, there's a few players before you get to Durant, but I don't even think Durant comes if Andre didn't. And so that's how I'm going to rest my answer. So final calls. We've all said it, but just say it in one word. I go Andre.
Andre.
Yeah, I go Andre, but I just want to, because Kevin Durant has been known to listen to the podcast before, and in general is just so deep in this shit that like he might find out about this segment. I don't have an Iguodala jersey, which maybe I need to rectify. I do have a Kevin Durant jersey, right? I do have like Kevin Durant memorabilia from like free shirts that got handed out of the games. I was super stoked on July 4th when he announced that he was joining. Like I'm not one of those guys that is saying like, oh, like I could take it or leave it. Like I didn't like his energy. Like Kevin Durant is a legend, as Mark said. We're splitting hairs here, but he's like such an important piece, and I'm so grateful to him. But I'm still going Andre.
I'm completely for sale. Kevin Durant, if you're still listening and then can tell people you're still listening, I vote Kevin Durant. There's no fucking question.
Okay. I guess Bram and I are the lone Kevin Durant voters here.
There you go. Mark, we missed you, man. Really missed you. Loved having you back. Always appreciate your insight. For everybody out there who needs far more Funky Medina in their life, where do they go?
Well, Warriors Huddle is a great platform, so thanks for listening. But I'll go line by line. I got writing, do stuff with Sportskeeda, Athlon Sports. They just got their NBA preview magazine out. Lindy's has theirs out soon, and then rg.org. TV, do things with CBS LA and Spectrum, and then radio, I'm on Fox Sports Radio. And social media channels, X, Mark G_Medina, and Instagram, Medina Syracuse.
Boom. Not much to pimp on our side. You know where to find us. Social media. You can shoot us an email to
Huddle@warriorshuddle.com.
With that in mind, go Warriors, and hopefully we'll see you real soon.